Back in 2020, Tesla released the Model Y. Since then, that car has had a meteoric rise, becoming the best selling car of any type in the world. This was the follow up to Tesla's Model 3, and now that Tesla has refreshed that car, the refresh of the Model Y is expected very soon. I've made a lot of videos talking about the Model Y Juniper refresh, but usually it's in pieces when we get the latest updates. So today I wanted to make a full video breaking down everything we expect from this car, when we expect to see it, and why it's exciting. So let's get into it, and a special thanks to Novium for sponsoring this video. As I mentioned, the Model Y was Tesla's follow-up to the Model 3 sedan. It took a lot from that car's design, and even shared up to 75% of the same parts at certain points in time. Essentially, it was a stretched and expanded version of that car that kept a lot the same, including the base platform, the battery pack, and all of that. Essentially, it's the same battery pack, so it's just in practice getting less range on a larger car since it has to push more. For a lot of people, actually, it's tough to tell these cars apart. It takes a trained eye to see that this one is bigger when it's going down the road versus this one is smaller, or this one has a different roof line and all of those different details. But the main difference is that the Model Y rides higher, the seats are on risers, so you feel that in practice, it has an all-glass panoramic roof, and it has a hatchback trunk. That hatchback trunk leads to it being one of the most versatile cars you can buy because there's a lot of space back there. Tesla and Elon Musk predicted that the Model Y would be very successful, but since it looked so similar to the Model 3, a lot of people doubted it when it launched, but it definitely became very popular. Over the last 4 years, this car has seen record-breaking sales. The Model Y isn't just the best-selling EV in the world, but the best-selling car of any type whatsoever. So it's actually been about 4.5 years, and Tesla has turned this into basically an unstoppable force, taking out legacy vehicles like the Toyota RAV4 and Honda CR-V. Now that's looking globally, so that's including Tesla's Chinese factory and their Berlin factory, and then their 2 US factories that make this car. But when we look just in the US, the Model Y has been the best-selling EV in this country for some time, and Tesla makes up the 2 top spots in this country. But beyond that, it's climbing in the overall car rankings as well. The Ford F-Series has been the best-selling vehicle in the US for a while now. In 2023, the Model Y was the 5th best-selling car in the US of any type, with about 385,900 sold. And then by the end of this year, 2024, data does suggest that this could become the best-selling car of any type within the United States. A lot of people see the United States as somewhat reluctant compared to other countries to go electric, but this is soon going to become the best-selling car of any type, beating out legendary cars like the F-150. So all of that to say, that's the reason this refresh is such a big deal. For many people, they don't understand why it may be so exciting, but it's so exciting because this car is so popular both in the United States and globally. And with the way Tesla does things, we don't see that many upgrades. It actually seems every few years they finally do a large refresh on their cars, but other than that, they're iterating constantly. They do follow a different cycle than other automakers, where instead of a yearly release with little updates here and there, they actually will just update their cars with whatever the latest and greatest parts they want to add to them is throughout the year. On top of that, you get software updates with the latest features as well. So if we look back to the 2020 Model Y, someone like myself could tell it apart, but to the average person, it's actually really difficult to tell. From the outside, you really can't tell the difference whatsoever unless you're looking at the wheel covers. Inside, they changed the center console, and they added things like the cargo cover in the rear, but overall, the changes have been things that you feel and don't see. For instance, it's gotten a lot quieter. The ride quality has gotten much, much better. The build quality has improved a lot, and they've added more acoustic glass to make it just a quieter ride inside. I actually had one of the first Model Ys. I think mine was under 2200, and that compared to one built today is a huge difference. But when it comes to the features and the overall design and look, you can't really tell them apart. So then in 2023, Tesla finally released the Model 3 refresh. This car was initially released exclusively out of their Chinese factory, but then it did come to the United States earlier this year. This car was a huge improvement over its predecessor, and it brought a ton of major features and improvements. I'll detail them now since we're expecting most of these in the Model Y Juniper. First, they changed the exterior, mainly with the front bumper and the rear bumper. They changed the headlights and taillights, and they gave the car overall a sleeker shape for better performance and aerodynamics. Interestingly, those small changes to aerodynamics actually led to efficiency improvements that really did increase the range of this car. So those small things really do make a difference. And then, of course, the design helps it stick out from other years past. Then inside, they improved a lot of things. They improved the comfort, they added ventilated seats, they revised the dash entirely, they improved all of the materials, they added a wraparound LED light bar that you can customize. There's a rear touchscreen for rear passengers, and you can watch things on that or control climate. And then there's a revised steering wheel that gets rid of stocks. This is a bit controversial, but you do shift on screen or use auto shift out of park by just tapping the brake and it guessing your direction. Also, there's actually a software update they're pushing right now that allows you to auto shift when doing maneuvers, but then your blinkers are buttons on the left side of the steering wheel. On top of this were the things you really notice as well. Better acoustic glass, better sound dampening, a stiffer body for better handling, and a sound system that is boosted from 14 to 17 speakers, and you really do notice that difference with its overall design. Then a few months after this was released, Tesla released the Performance Model 3. That came with a number of notable changes, and it was a difference from what Tesla had done in the past. The old Model 3 had a lot of similarities to the Model 3 Performance. It basically looked the same with some small changes, and then of course, its increased performance. But this time, Tesla actually updated its bumper, gave it special dampers, a special adaptive suspension, sport seats inside, and then of course the 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, or in 2.8 seconds in some people's real-world practice. So the Model 3 was already a very popular and good car, but these improvements really took it to the next level and more so justified its price tag. And then of course it has left us wondering, what is going on with the Model Y? At this point, the Model Y really has kind of this year to year and a half old design from Tesla, versus the Model 3 is updated and modern, and even kind of the most updated car besides the Cybertruck. Even the Model S and X feel like an older version of some of these features. So the Model Y has continued being very popular, but we are seeing Tesla pushing some incentives to drive sales of that car before the end of this year. I think that's because a lot of people are expecting this Model Y refresh right around the corner. So most have expected that Tesla would just copy and paste the Model 3 over to the Model Y. Of course, in practice for engineering, that requires a lot of engineering work. It's not just a simple copy and paste, but when you look at it at its surface, it's probably going to be pretty much the same car. I think we do overall expect that, but we've actually seen a lot of leaks of this car that point to it having some differentiating features from the Model 3. Pretty much confirmed at this point, the Model Y Juniper is expected to have a light bar across the back. This was leaked and is a big difference from the Model 3 that would really make this car stand out differently. This has not been confirmed, of course, but it seems very likely based on the leaked photos that we have seen. And there are great renders that show what this looks like. One other design change there is that in order to accommodate this rear light bar, they've shifted the license plate below the tailgate and above the tow hitch. That does really make the rear end of the Model Y look a lot different than it has in the past. Across the front as well, we are expecting some big changes here. It could go one of two ways. We've seen Tesla out on the road testing with the Model Y Juniper refresh, and based on the cutouts that they have for the headlights, it looks like it could either be two very slim headlights, potentially even daytime running lights with real headlights beneath them, or it may be a light bar across the whole front of the Model Y's bumper. This would be taking the design from the robotaxi that they have shown us, and also somewhat the Cybertruck. It could be a good way for Tesla to take their most popular car and bring it very far into the future immediately. So those are the main design changes we're expecting on the exterior that will help distinguish this car from previous years. It also may make it look a little more like something like the Chevy Blazer. In my opinion, that looks kind of similar to what this is going to look like, and the rear light bar reminds me of certain Lexus vehicles. But one feature they will be adding to the front bumper is a front bumper camera. This is something that was expected on the Model 3. In fact, Tesla's own renders on their website, when they launched this car out of Europe, showed a front bumper camera, and then they promptly removed them when everyone got excited. But a front bumper camera is something we're seeing on the Cybertruck now. We've seen it on Tesla's robotaxi design, so we know it's the future of where they're going with cameras, and it just adds a lot of extra visibility and flexibility for drivers when they're parking and for the FSD system. Before we go any further, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Novium. Novium makes a line of futuristic and elegant pens that defy gravity without any plugs or electricity. This sleek, refillable pen floats perfectly in its stand and writes extremely well. The Hover Pen Interstellar floats at a 23.5 degree angle, the same angle that the Earth rotates on its axis. Then the premium version is 18 karat gold plated and even includes a real meteorite shard embedded inside. Novium also offers the Hover Pen Future, which looks like a rocket. That pen features a 2-in-1 design, which allows you to swap between a fountain pen and rollerball tip. Then the newly released Novium Dock showcases your hover pen, making it look even cooler. With the holidays right around the corner, Novium hover pens are a great gift idea for any tech or science enthusiast. The Interstellar gift set includes the premium hover pen Interstellar and a bunch of accessories. It comes in a beautiful, ready-to-gift package, complete with daily productivity cards, the Novium dock, card stand, a notebook, and more. To check out these amazing pens with free shipping to most countries, click the link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen. Then use my code RyanShaw to get 20% off your purchase for 48 hours only. Inside as well, we're expecting all those Model 3 changes. So these same seats that we're getting in the new Model 3, except sitting on risers, so they will include ventilation, which is great. Then they'll probably get rid of stocks. So you will be shifting on screen or using auto shift, and then you will be using blinker buttons. If you do want to change that, there are third-party accessories that can add stocks back, but not everyone's going to want to do that. And this is an interesting design choice by Tesla. At this point, the Model Y is the last remaining car that they sell with stocks, but a lot of people don't actually want them gone, but it seems to be where they're going. In any case, I do expect the ventilated seats to be extremely popular, the quieter cabin and smoother ride to be very popular in this car, and then for the rear screen to be very popular amongst families. I also think the Model Y has one of the best sound systems that Tesla ships, so I'm excited to see that get an upgrade, and then see what they can do with the acoustics in the rear, because sometimes the hatchback can create a little bit of a weird bumpy sound when you're driving in certain Model Ys, so if they can change that and fix that with better sound dampening, that would be great to see. For the most part, all of those changes seem to be pretty much guaranteed. Tesla is going to change those things because it's going to put it right in line with the Model 3. However, there are a number of changes we're hoping to see, or people have speculated on. The first one there is an 800-volt architecture. Into the future, Tesla is moving to an 800-volt architecture for their high-voltage system, and this was first debuted for them on the Cybertruck. This allows for power to transfer throughout the vehicle at a lower current, and it lowers the amount of energy lost to heat, and also means the same power can move through thinner wires. So basically, you get significant cost and weight savings with much less wiring, but then it enables things like faster charging speeds. Currently, Tesla's vehicles and the Model Y are limited to 250 kilowatt peak charging speeds. Overall, the thing that matters the most is the charging curve, but still 250 is the cap, while other cars can get 350. Going into the future, Tesla has recently announced their V4 supercharging cabinets that boost speeds up to 500 kilowatts for certain vehicles. As of right now, the only vehicle that supports this will be the Cybertruck, so many are hoping that if Tesla's doing a big refresh here, they'll take the Model Y and put it right in line with the Cybertruck's charging capabilities, making it capable of peak charging speeds of 500 kilowatts. That would be incredibly impressive and absolutely blow the competition out of the water, but I kind of doubt that they're going to do this since they didn't do this on the Model 3. Remember how much the Model 3 and Y share in common. And yes, Tesla is going to distinguish those cars a bit with the exterior design and such, but as far as the underlying architecture, I definitely put a little bit of doubt into that changing. The next feature is one that comes from the Cybertruck and would be definitely enabled by this 800-volt and 48-volt low-voltage architecture, and that is steer-by-wire. Most cars, with the exception of the Cybertruck, have a mechanical link between the steering wheel and wheels. The Cybertruck, however, was the first vehicle to ditch this entirely in favor of steer-by-wire with no backup system. This is a lot like F1 cars, and quote, instead, sensors in the steering column communicate electronically with the steering racks. In practice, this allows for finer control of the steering that is more easily adjustable, and it can be less or more sensitive at slower and faster speeds, where it makes more sense to have finer control. In the Cybertruck, it makes that car incredibly maneuverable, and many people are thinking, well, if they have that on the Cybertruck now, and if they have advanced that technology and maybe brought it to scale and made it actually cheaper than a traditional steering column, then bring it to the Model Y. One reason I do think this really is great as well is that for the Cybertruck, they also got rid of blinker buttons and made you shift on screen. But with the blinker buttons in practice on a car like the Model 3, if you're doing a quick left and then a quick right, you can't really access those blinker buttons because your steering wheel is turned around. In the Cybertruck, however, because of steer-by-wire, you never actually turn hand over hand. And that means that those blinker buttons are basically always next to your finger because you're simply turning like this, and your blinker buttons are right there. If they went with steer-by-wire on the Model Y, they could accomplish the same thing and basically have less people complaining about situations where those blinker buttons do not make sense. However, I do put doubt into the steer-by-wire system making its way to the Model Y, especially when it's not on cars like the Model 3 and especially the Model 3 Performance. It would be a weird distinguisher that actually makes the Model Y better in some ways. The next thing that has been speculated on is a longer range. With the Model 3, we saw some efficiency boosts due to better aerodynamics, and this was 5% reduced drag, 36% lift reduction, and 55% improvement in front and rear lift balance. In practice, this gives a little bit of a boost to that car's range without having to increase its battery pack. But we also may see a larger battery pack come to the Model Y. There have been some rumors going around that the Model Y may see a battery pack all the way up to 95 kilowatt hours. In practice, this could enable that car to get closer to something like a 500-mile range marker. For some customers, that is still the threshold that they need for buying an EV. Maybe they plan to tow, or maybe they just don't have many charging options, or they road trip a lot and do not want to have to be charging. And even though charging is readily available at Tesla superchargers, a 500-mile range is what's stopping them from going electric. Other companies like Lucid have introduced very long-range vehicles, so maybe Tesla's finally going to take the plunge there, take their most popular car, and give it a longer-range battery pack option with 95 kilowatt hours. If they did this, I do think it would be very popular, but Tesla just has a history of not shipping very long-range vehicles because they're just not as popular and not as scalable. However, if they did bring that, it would pair very well with very fast charging. So in an ideal world, yes, we would get 500 kilowatt peak speeds, we would get an 800 volt architecture, we would get steer-by-wire, and we would get a larger battery pack option for the Model Y. But Tesla kind of always goes for the standard and what is most scalable, which does make sense, but leaves us with a car that's a little bit less than some people desire. But that brings us to our next feature, which is something Tesla debuted on the Cybertruck, and that is Powershare. Bidirectional charging is where you can take power into the battery pack and store it, and then you can send it back out to charge things or power things like your home. For the Cybertruck, there's a Powershare accessory that you can install into your home, and then you can back up your home's electricity for up to 3 days. This is incredibly useful since you have an incredibly large battery pack sitting there with power. However, up till now, up till the Cybertruck, all of these Tesla vehicles have not had this capability. So your house could be entirely dark while 100 to 200 kilowatt hours of energy is sitting inside of your garage between multiple Teslas if you have them. So the hope here is that since Tesla is doing a full refresh, maybe they'll finally bring bidirectional charging to the Model Y. We'll have to see, but I currently doubt it at this point and think they'll keep it a bit Cybertruck exclusive, but I really do want to see this come to be. It's just kind of a no-brainer that everyone can utilize that battery pack in multiple ways. So we know for sure we're getting a certain percentage of those features. I personally think that they will stop at the new battery pack or an 800 volt architecture, and it will be limited to things like the interior and exterior design, but the question remains, maybe you're convinced that you want this car, when is it actually coming? Well, the Model 3 refresh initially came out of China to start, and it was a weird launch because everyone in the United States knew that that car existed out of China and would obviously be coming to the United States soon, but Tesla was still producing and selling the normal Model Y in the United States for some months. I believe it was something like August of 2023 that this car launched out of China and was shipping to China and European countries. And then it wasn't until January of this year that the Model 3 refresh made its way to the United States. Well, one difference we have from that launch is that first, the Model Y is much more popular. So if many customers know about that new refresh coming out of China, it may cause what's called the Osborne effect, where a lot of people are just waiting for the next version of a product, so the company actually can't sell the current version. I think that would happen even more so with the Model Y than it happened with the Model 3. The other thing is that Tesla has 4 factories that make this car as opposed to 2 with the Model 3. The Model 3 is made in Shanghai and Fremont versus the Model Y is made in Shanghai, Fremont, Texas, and Berlin. So it's not like they make it in one factory and then copy and paste that to a second one. They'd have to do that and then copy and paste it to 3 others. So I think it may make a lot more sense for them to just launch it out of all 4 simultaneously if they can get that done, even if it causes some delays at factories like Shanghai that are very productive. In any case, we know that Shanghai has been producing the Model Y refresh since about October. This car is likely to be ready to go, but they're testing prototypes right now. The rumors have been that they're producing about 15 a day. Of course, that's so that they can test them in the real world and then iterate on initial prototypes before starting real production for customers. But the rumor here is that we'll likely see it come sometime in January. On top of that, we've seen this car driven in the United States as well, and we've heard rumors from employees that they are starting to work on the Model Y Juniper refresh. I've even seen photos of parts of this car from Tesla's Fremont factory, so we know that they're iterating on this car there and getting it ready for a launch. It's just a matter of when. I personally think we can expect this car to come in Q1 regardless. I think definitely an announcement will come in Q1 for Tesla's Model Y Juniper refresh for the entire world. And then even if production ramps faster in somewhere like Shanghai, we'll see it come to the United States relatively soon after. So then comes the question of price. Well, the Model Y currently starts at $44,990 in the United States, and that's for the long-range rear-wheel drive model. What I expect to happen here is actually a couple different price increases. First, I bet Tesla will launch this at about the same price that it's at. Maybe it will get a $1,000 price increase. But then once they see demand come in, and then they are stacked up on demand, and demand is higher than their production capacity at that time in the United States as they're ramping back up on the new version, they might actually increase its price. They have been known to do this a lot in the past. They always are adjusting pricing based on demand. So we could see that price go up a bit when this car is very popular and in demand, but it will almost guaranteed come down in time. We saw that very much happen with the Model 3. They launched that new version and it saw some price increases, but over time came back down to its normal pricing. Then the other price increase we may see is the disappearance of the EV tax credit. That's that $7,500 EV tax credit that many people qualify for and many people actually rely on at this point in time, but that is rumored to be going away within 2025. And if that goes away, in practice, that will make these cars quite a bit more expensive, or Tesla will have to lower their price a lot accordingly. Still, that going away, though, is one of those things that actually will hurt Tesla's competitors more than Tesla themselves. Tesla is very profitable on the Model Y, and even with this new version, they'll remain profitable and they can lower their prices. It will, of course, decrease their margins a bit and have an impact on them overall, but they'll be able to succeed regardless. And then the last thing to keep in mind if you're excited about this new car is that every new Tesla model gets better the longer it is built. The Cybertruck just came out and we saw early build quality issues with that car. The Model 3 Performance or the Model 3 refresh saw some issues when it was first launched, and if you got the earliest VIN possible, you'd actually probably see more issues than a later one because they're constantly iterating, learning, and improving on that build quality. So if you're someone that's patient and wants the best deal possible, and you also want the best build quality possible, it's actually going to be a good idea to probably wait further into 2025 to upgrade to the Model Y Juniper. Even though it may become available within Q1, those will be the first runs of this new version off of Tesla's assembly lines out of 4 different factories. And then, as I mentioned, the price may actually go up because of increased demand. I've learned this a few times the hard way because for this channel, I obviously always try to get the car as soon as possible so I can review it, and usually it ends up having a little more issues, and then it depreciates faster because I bought it at a higher price. That's just something to keep in mind if you're looking forward to this car. But of course, there's that complexity of the tax credit that I just mentioned, so maybe there will be an overlap of this new car launching and the tax credit still being available, and maybe that will still make the most sense for you. Regardless, that is what we expect for the Model Y Juniper. In some ways, it's a very exciting refresh that is long overdue, and in some ways, it may not be enough change that we really want to see with things like an 800-volt architecture. That all remains to be seen, but we do expect this to launch within the next few months, and I'm excited to see it. What do you most want to see in the Model Y Juniper, though? Are you excited about this or not very excited? Leave a comment below to let me know your thoughts. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.